Hello, and welcome to another episode of TacoBytes, your daily bite of Degen. It does say episode 324, but we are on episode 324. It says 323, but that is where we are at today. This is how we're coming to you live. We hope everyone's having a great day. It has been one of long days of doing nothing, looking at forgetting about crypto Twitter for a little bit, having a little bit of fun, doing everything that we've been doing. It's one of the fun things on Twitter is being able to just go and visit sites and people that you're not even friends with, that you're not even connected to, and just go see what they're doing, and have a really good time conversing with them and being a little bit a part of what they are doing. And we did that last night as well. People with like minds, that follow some of the same things that you do, because you want to go see what they're about. And, we would not be the worst show on Twitter if we did not push off this episode for 5 hours. I think we've been pushing it back because we had some other stuff that we had to attend to. And, I want to welcome Will to the stage. GM, Will, how are you? How is life today? All right. Good to hear. Yeah, you had a good turnout. Some might say that it was a low turnout, but that was like your event number. That was your first event addressing the crypto industry, so to speak, right? You had a good turnout. Some might say that it was a low turnout, but that was like your event number. That was your first event addressing the crypto industry, so to speak, right?
Yeah. First official event, getting over to PubKey. It was great. Lots of old and new faces from my world. So we kind of put it as like a flash mob kind of, guerrilla marketing. So it was great to get as many folks as we did, given that we were just kind of brute forcing it. In the 48 hours before. So
who knows yet?
I was really
but
satisfied.
It was an honor to meet you yesterday.
Got to meet you, which was awesome.
So. I was, I wanted to sort of lay out some more, conversations, just sort of my opinions and sort of what I felt, but, would love. But it was an honor to meet you yesterday. We ended up talking for like an hour and a half after everyone left, I think. I wanted to sort of lay out, which was just sort of crazy because it felt like 15, 20 minutes. My opinions and sort of what I felt, but, would love. So, we ended up talking for like an hour and a half after everyone left, I think. Which was just sort of crazy because it felt like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, totally. The whole thing was, it was a pretty long, got there at like 8 o'clock. And I think you and I clocked out around midnight or a little after.
Yeah.
So it was good. And the whole thing, was kind of a fast experience for me. Obviously, talking to a lot of people, and kind of float around, making sure I get everybody, FaceTime and hear from them. So it's pretty nonstop, but it's truly the stuff that I love about politics. Like, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I've had a handful of different jobs, both in the campaign side, but also on kind of the government and constituent relations side. And I genuinely mean it when I say my favorite thing to do is just to chat,
sort of like
chat with folks,
your bio,
and hear what they care about, hear what they're up to. So it was really cool.
Because this is a recorded space and we're live across Twitch, 2 YouTube channels, and LinkedIn, and a disc and a Telegram chat. Let's introduce yourself, sir. We're live across Twitch, 2 YouTube channels, and LinkedIn,
and a Telegram chat. Let's introduce yourself, sir.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm first and foremost, I'm running for U.S. Senate here in the state of New York. I've been in politics, kind of in and out of politics uniquely, since 2008. I joined the Obama campaign as a chapter organizer at my college at the time, Hobart and William Smith in upstate New York. And yeah, I have just to that sentiment been floated in and out. Did a lot of stuff in my hometown in Rochester, New York, following the experience with the Obama campaign, and led me to pursuing a degree in political science. I ended up kind of tailoring that toward foreign policy and international relations, which signs of the times. It's kind of the heart of the global war on terror, and we had hard pivoted toward Afghanistan at that point, and I was fortunate to have a handful of great professors in school who kind of showed me the path, if you will, to having an impact in that space. So I joined the military. I became a U.S. Army Ranger with 2nd Ranger Battalion out of Fort Joint Base Lewis McChord in Tacoma, Washington. Did a couple of trips to Afghanistan. As an infantryman, and yeah, continued on from there. Yeah, all kind of circling in on, eventually I got tipped off onto what blockchain was about. I got a sense of certainly how Bitcoin had started and was evolving, and even though even Bitcoin specifically wasn't a thing that I latched onto in my early exploration, I was enamored by blockchain and what folks were talking about with it, being a solution to a lot of really societal problems. There's a lot of big, I wouldn't say hype, but a lot of promise and a lot of aspiration around what technology could mean for the future. So that was kind of what drew me to exploring the tech more deeply. I coupled that with my geopolitical experience and working in the intelligence community and understanding the real problems of the world today at a deep level. And yeah, those two things put me on a path to start my own company, where we leveraged a private blockchain to do some unique stuff in campaign finance compliance. So a really niche, experience of building a company truly in a sector where no one else was doing what we were doing. No one else had even put together the ideas that I was thinking about and leading on, and that got me really deep into the space when I was talking to folks about what I wanted to solve for, this lack of trust in the political system, and tying that down to the troubles in campaign finance and the fact that nobody trusts, how this system works and how the institutions that are supposed to uphold like the rules and the regulations, these have been captured or corrupted, and all this stuff kind of, coalesced into this company and this product that we built called For Us, which is a campaign finance compliance automation system. So yeah, all brought me deep into the blockchain and crypto world, and I'm certainly very excited about being now in a position to run for U.S. Senate here in New York and have a unique set of relationships and experiences that have bridged this gap of, what's been going on in crypto and blockchain and Bitcoin into like real world problems, government level problems, and exploring innovative solution, new ideas that are really challenging. It's not quite so explicit to say challenging the status quo, although it is that, but just challenging folks who have not been able to kind of see outside of their own like thought bubbles, right, or their own orbits of collective like new ideas. It was really telling when I was pitching for us and selling for us once we actually built it, which was cool, and working with regulators, really getting that opportunity to educate, educate the campaign finance board and here in New York City about like what's KYC data, what does that mean to you guys as a campaign finance regulator? Why is that important, and why can a blockchain be a great place for public trust to be, raised, if you will, or made better by having a public and immutable, ledger and transparent, set of transactions with all the metadata. So all that stuff. I'll kind of pause there, but I'm just super excited to be running and to have this connection to the industry in a very genuine way. And I very much care about, what's been going on federally, and it's a big thing that I want to make sure the folks in the industry.
So one of the things with that,
I guess, know that I'm here to support them.
It's
and make sure that we have a clear path.
It's really
to
easy.
Sustaining.
I think in a lot of times it's really easy to use some of those keywords of like transparency and making changes. Like that seems to be the stance that
really
everyone
I think in a lot of
has.
A lot of times it's really easy to use
and government corruption
like
and bring more transparency. And now, if everyone had done that, one of the questions one would ask is, well, was it that dirty to begin with, or has no one actually accomplished anything, or have they failed, and has the machine caused them to fail? When I say machine, doesn't matter if you're left or right, just the politics of it all. Because those seem to be like the keywords that a lot of people use. How do you think that you can do that differently?
And when I say machine,
and what are you fighting against?
It doesn't matter if you're left or right, just the politics of it all. Because those seem to be like the keywords that a lot of people use. How do you think that you can do that differently? And what are you fighting against?
Yeah, I think the approach that I took was I was coupled with two great pillars that made things different in the way that I tackled this issue and think about it. I'll try to unpack it as saliently as I can, but it was one thing to at first identify the problem, and we can digest that here in a moment. But just big picture, you got to figure out what's the problem. If nobody, for me, it was the fact that democratic institutions across the globe were basically polling very negatively. There was a strong sentiment of lack of trust in democratic institutions across the world, and we were feeling it here in the United States as well. And if you looked at, there was a poll, I think it was I'm going to forget. There's a poll you can look up. I'm not going to get it wrong by saying I don't remember which pollster it was, but it was like a 2014 or 2016 poll about how Americans felt about the Federal Election Commission specifically, and it was campaign finance law as well, and it was truly the least trusted institution of this whole list that they polled. It was at like 18% of Americans trusted it, and to me, campaign finance is really the root of. Is the beginning of a political person's experience, right? So if even right now, like I'm jumping into running for office, and the sentiment that Americans have is such that there's an assumption that anybody who's running for office is either like explicitly corrupt or kind of bought and sold and preferences of, what they're going to support or not support. And there's this default kind of sentiment that folks have about people who step into the political space about this, because we've had such a history now, certainly post Citizens United, but such a history in the country that's gotten worse and worse and worse of truly politicians doing that, either being corrupt or having this really post Citizens United, effect where regular people's voices are not reflected in say like the amount of legislation that is actually like thrown at a particular issue. And there's lots of studies out there that have been done to show that big donor issues get more attention legislatively, both at like the state level and certainly at the federal level as well. So this is kind of the thing that I was tapping in on, was like, well, campaign finance, no one trusts this process, and these, the regulators and the institutions themselves. This is the thing that is tainting the whole democratic experience, where our politicians get elected if we assume that they're corrupted or persuaded to the benefit of big money folks. The problem is that then when they get into office, all of their decisions, the constituents, and certainly from a political lens, people put you into that bucket, and they start to really try to look at you and just peg you that way, whether or not you really are or you're not. But it just is this default now, and that perpetuates then, right? Like, a senator is elected, and there's issues about, well, whose pocket is this person in, and then through their legislation, maybe they are biased towards certain outcomes, and things like appointees and how they vote on all these things. These all are the seeds that result in the bigger issues about other institutions then being viewed as corrupted, and ultimately the whole system, the whole democratic experience here in the United States really is tainted by the fact that we just don't trust the political class from the moment that they step into the process of becoming a politician. And that was something very like L1, if you will, but like right down at the core of how I understood why democracy was in decline and why people were losing trust in the institutions themselves. It was rooted in this political experience of running for office and the campaign finance system being so tainted by its inability to enforce its own laws, to have rules that actually make sense. And then we'll go there, like we'll get deep into the process and operations of how campaigns actually, basically prove that they are doing the right thing and show that they're taking money from the people they claim they are and spending it with the folks that they claim they are, which, I'll get in there to why we started with this product, which was about leveraging all of the innovation in basically open banking first. So I said I have these two pillars that I was really set up with to go after this in a new way, which was first understanding first was understanding the problem. The first pillar then was understanding the emerging technology in payments and banking, compliance, identity, all of this stuff, had been well invested in, frankly, from big banks for a number of years. By the time I started digging in on it, circa like 2015, 2016. So the groundwork was laid there. I was working in the intelligence community, so I had exposure to a lot of, and really through a cyber lens. And so I had a lot of exposure to like what these technologies were, what they actually were doing, how they actually worked, who were the people that actually operated them. All this stuff let me kind of get a head start in knowing, like what's real, like how do you discern the hype from actual product that folks are actually using, both in facilitating like banking experiences, but also law enforcement experiences, and regulatory experiences, all that stuff. So I had that pillar number one, which was just to understand like where the technology was, how it was actually being used. And then the second one is kind of what I started with, but it was the fact that by the time it was 2015, I had done, I don't know how many campaigns, and, I'd been involved politically for a long time, to the point where I knew really well how campaigns actually operate. I actually know, at that point, I knew like, what was broken about how campaigns like reported their quote unquote compliance, but it was a huge disconnect for me, which was like, you have all this emerging tech in the banking system and then blockchain was a part of that, right? And that was like a new thing that again I saw the use cases for, and the test runs of, like, when R3 and Corda, this is a big seminal moment for me, when they were running a big test net with 43 international banks, and they were using a blockchain, Corda. They were using it to basically share data between the banks, and they were doing it because they needed to lower their cost of compliance. Like, there were a lot of new anti-money laundering regulations that had come out across the European Union. The U.S. had been, trending toward better AML laws and enforcement capabilities, and the thing that the banks were dealing with was just a huge burden on their books of having to be more and more and more compliant. So they were genuinely looking at it through the lens of, like, what's the most operationally efficient way to do this? Do we just hire tons and tons and tons more, accountants and, forensic accountants and attorneys who are going to, like, just, do the paper pushing that, was the kind of way before all this technology came in? Or do we actually invest in this technology and see if it can help us, shore up these processes and save us money, right? So that was cool when I got exposure to some of these test nets that were running, and seeing how, again, like, how it was actually working, and what the use cases really were, and what the data really was, and therefore it let me know, again, like, what was real within the data world. Like, what data did the banks actually have? What data did the payment systems actually have? What data did the regulators actually deem as, like, worthy and legally sound for reporting abilities or capabilities? So all that stuff I knew was there. And then I looked at how, campaigns, allegedly reported their finances, and it was a huge disconnect. Like, it was just completely backwards in the campaign world. There was no sense of how this technology, that this technology even existed, and that there could be a way to basically automate from the payment to the bank transactions and settlement and all the metadata around all this. That technology was already there, and what we were doing with my company was tapping into the data that I knew the banks had, pulling the technology that had been developed, like I said, for payments, like new banking core systems, new data lakes that they had set up, and also in the compliance and reporting, like reg tech, that had been kind of a new emerging category at that time, and just taking what was already out there but pointing it at this new use case. So that all ties into, like, I knew, to kind of the sentiment of your question, like, I knew that the breakdown in the trust element in campaign finance was, on the one hand, like, it was very important that I always made this point, certainly when I was selling for us to folks, and I do hold it as true, is that, 95% of all political campaigns and folks out there in, running for office are genuine in that, like, they want to, there's some issue that deep inside them they really care about, and they do want to do better for their community. Now, there's a handful of folks who are out there doing nefarious stuff, but it paints everybody when there isn't an opportunity for those who are trying to do it the right way to basically, like, they don't have the tools and the capabilities to do it other than in the same exact way as the people who are doing it for nefarious purposes. So we were trying to build a system that attacked head on the reality where you do have, accountants and attorneys in the political space who are nefarious and who are trying to, launder money through political campaigns. This is like campaign, problem number one is like, a lot of it looks like money laundering, certainly from a bank's point of view. All these things, it's not that it all is.
That was something we had talked about
ticking off
too.
red flags.
The different
how a bank account is moving money. Campaigns, a lot of them look like they're laundering money, and a few of them do launder money. So the fact that
that was something we had talked about too. The different loopholes on that.
Totally. I mean, the fact that, so the problem is the fact that, and we're all kind of techie, right? So if you just look at it as a graph, right? Like, you take away you anonymize it, like at a graph level, all of it kind of checks a lot of the boxes. So it's really hard to tell who's actually doing, the right thing versus who's taking advantage of the system. And so we were building for us as this way to I was, when I pitched it to regulators, and when we were working most closely with the Board of Elections here in New York State, where we actually had candidates and campaigns that were our customers. After we built it, we filed with the state on their behalf. Like, we were explaining to them that what we were doing was flipping the whole set of processes completely on its head, because the way that it worked before, what we were doing, and still really today, is, somebody comes to my, for me, like, someone would go to my Act Blue account, they'll, put in some information about claiming who they are. It's basically all hearsay. It's just a form, it's just a payment gateway. There's no ID verification that's done at that moment, and you can kind of type in anything on that form. Obviously, you're trying to process a credit card, so it has to match up to have like a real credit card number. Ideally, ideally the name of the person on the credit card is also associated with, or debit card is also associated with the name on the bank account. But the thing there is, like, a lot of it is, the point is, it gets set up in a payment gateway. I get a PDF, right? Or I get like just superficial data about all of these transactions, me on the campaign side. And then I have to take that, this spreadsheet, and it's my job to make sure that all the transactions are, like, not from foreign citizens, that it's all like within the appropriate thresholds of, there's like maximum contribution limits, all these things that it's now my job in the campaign to account for. But I'm doing that manually. And like, I have to, there's a problem with like a small, but I think big problem with our politics are these like ticky-tacky barriers to entry. Like, if you want to run a really big campaign, you're going to have to raise a ton of money, which the fact that you have to do all this manual labor just to be compliant means that you're going to need like an expensive attorney and a team of like finance associates, essentially, or, compliance associates who are going to go through and do all this data scraping and make sure that it's all, checks out, right? Like, and again, that's all hearsay, essentially. Like, it's all just spreadsheet data that's reported to you. And then I give that to the regulator. And the challenge there is, like, the regulators are dealing with a situation with, when you get bad data in, you get bad data out. So if we're just relying on spreadsheets from campaigns, that they got from somebody else, and then the regulator is saying like, great, your spreadsheet matches this other spreadsheet, so now we're going to print a new spreadsheet, which is the thing that becomes the public record. None of that data is actually connected to like what the payment, and like Act Blue, for example, and WinRed, these are the gateways. They're not the payment processes. So WinRed runs on Stripe, Act Blue runs on WorldPay, like, and yet these gateways are the ones that all the campaigns get their data that they that they claim is like above board. They're not getting the reports from WorldPay. They're not getting the reports from Stripe, which is what you really need. And even within that, you really want the bank-to-bank transactions. Ideally, was what we were building, is to get to the level where I just want the KYC packets from the bank about which accounts are transacting with each other, right? So, so we were trying to flip the whole thing by saying, let's just start there, because if a regulator eventually is going to go after a campaign for doing, illicit finance activities, the regulator has to go through this super delayed process, this bureaucratic process, we call it the justice system, of having to subpoena, right? Like they'd subpoena the campaign for additional records. That takes time. Then they have to go through whatever they get there. Then they have to subpoena, they have to prove that they should subpoena like Act Blue, and then they'd have to subpoena WorldPay, and then they have to subpoena my bank, and then they have to subpoena all these other banks of the people who gave me, who transacted with my bank.
Yeah.
And this is the stuff that makes it so you get into a worse situation where enforcement of this is so delayed that you often see where if somebody had done something wrong, it doesn't even make its way through the courts until the election's already done. And that person might have won, and so we were really trying to attack this problem by saying that, go back to that number one thing, which like democracy was in decline. Campaign finance to me was at the core of this. And I just saw a better way to do it. And I knew no one else could see what I saw. And I knew no one else therefore was doing it. So that was what I got emboldened to just go for it. This was some years ago now. It was like 2018 when I had the kind of aha moment and started down that journey. But I'll summarize it like, it was a big call of kind of like who I am when I see something that's broken and I feel like I'm in a position to do something about it. And I'm just a person who, I don't know, like attacks big hairy problems, right? Like go to Afghanistan because I think that the foreign policy issues are such, and we just gotta, at that time it was like we just gotta kill bin Laden. What else is on the table here, guys? Like let's be real about what this is about. So just saying, hey, I'm gonna raise my hand. I'm just gonna give it.
You laid out a lot of paths there
and go for it. That's
really
who I am, and
backtrack a little bit,
like kind of why I've
while you're in front of your phone, I'm in front of my phone.
We don't have to go down all that
computers, so I wasn't able to find the exact study that you were mentioning about people's sentiment of the Federal Elections Commission and stuff like that. But one of the other ones that I sort of found was a little bit different on campaign spending, and you had sort of touched on this a little bit on the size of people's. So, as it speaks about war chest that is needed, where in 2014, $1.1 billion was raised or reported as being raised from all parties. And so, where that was almost $24 per vote. The numbers that the Pew Research Center gave is that $1.1 billion was raised and spent, or was spent, not raised, but spent. So I don't have that number of how much was actually raised, but 44 million votes, and it was actually one of the lowest turnout levels, with only 38% of people that were able to vote in those states that had Senate races. Running vote. So that was almost double the cost. So you're almost paying $25 per vote in a way. With only 38% of people, and that's just exponentially gone up. I'm looking at one of the graphs of votes versus money raised, and it's it only goes up to 14. But I'm assuming that graph continues to go up.
And that's just exponentially gone up. I'm looking at one of the graphs
with 9 years later. It's probably a lot higher than that. But so
it only goes up to 14.
When you talked about the Board of Elections and you bringing them a solution or an idea of a solution that you already had people on board
9 years later, it's still
what was their response?
Probably a lot higher than that. But so when you talked about the Board of Elections and you bringing them a solution or an idea of a solution that you already had people on board with, what was their response to that?
Frankly, I was talking to this guy, Don, and Don Robark, I think is his last name. But Don was like enamored by what we were doing. Maybe that's my word of the day. Sorry if I repeat it, but he thought it was awesome. He didn't quite understand it all, and that was my work as like the entrepreneur and all that stuff to take the time to explain it to them. But he thought that, like, first and foremost, the regulators in this space, they might not know all of the things that are out there. Like they might not have, and I would say they genuinely don't have a sense of all this emerging tech and certainly how to separate really like the hype machine in fintech and reg tech from what's actually real. And it's like they're between a rock and a hard place, campaign finance regulators, because number one, we should all recognize that most of them are either explicitly, but they're trying, like the political class, always trying to capture those regulators between different means and methods. And that can be simple things like, keeping them on a tight budgetary leash. So making sure essentially that these agencies are underfunded. And also the cadence. I mean, you're talking about something that matters a ton when you talk about the volume of money that these regulators are now having to account for and investigate potentially. It is so much more so quickly that they're overwhelmed. And they have, certainly in New York and then the FEC, and I think it's ubiquitous across the country, most of them have actually, like by law, they have hard deadlines based on when the filing period is to when the regulator has to put the information out to the public. So you have these issues with the regulators just being overwhelmed with the amount of data that they're getting. They have their own tools that have been built for them, but it's like, hey, does this spreadsheet match this spreadsheet, right? And it's just like macros running to look for basic accounting errors, but they're trying to do it as quick as they can. They also don't talk to each other, so there's not information sharing between jurisdictions, which is a big problem. And especially if you're getting into like looking for these really sophisticated networks of, let's say, illicit funds, but just trying to really track the money. It's a challenge. There's a group called the National Institute for Money and Politics, NIMP. These guys are the ones who, according to them, have access to, and they aggregate all of the data that comes out of the Secretary of State's office and or these regulators. Explicitly, they claim to like get it immediately and have unique API plugins or whatever, or at least they're FOIA-ing, Freedom of Information Act. They're trying to get that data like as soon as they can, and they sell the data, which kind of sucks. Like they have to sell the data. They're a nonprofit. They have to sell it. But who their primary customer is actually like the law enforcement agencies. So that goes to show that the regulators themselves aren't capable of actually doing this aggregation and investigative work to a degree that law enforcement is actually willing to trust the end outputs of the public information to the point where they're actually buying data that is supposed to be publicly available. They're actually buying it from another third party that is doing a better job of cleaning it and figuring out what the issues are. So the regulators, when I came to them with this, first with the idea, and it was years of making relationships as I was doing the other hard work of actually building the company and getting people to join my team and then actually building the product, right? Finding investors, all that stuff I also had to be doing aside from educating these people about what this was all supposed to do for them. And I can say gladly that they were all very eager to hear about it. They wanted us to succeed. They wanted because they understood that it made their lives easier. When we explain that as like garbage in is garbage out, they get that, and they were very, very much looking for better data to come in, right? But that wasn't really the hard part actually. So working with the regulators was quite, like, we were on the same page, right? Like they're trying to combat bad stuff happening. I was coming to them to be like, hey, I've got a tool that's going to help you do that. And
so you got a good reception, but this is one of the things that I sort of
bad stuff from happening.
Took away from our conversation.
We all got along very.
It might
very
be
well.
It might sound good and everyone might like it, but it actually then doesn't really fit with the way that they get money, and it might actually hinder them, because I've looked at campaign donation sites that are almost WordPress pages that you can run scripts on to just autofill with random information. And I know, that you can use a pre-filled debit card that has no names affiliated to it to make donations. And so,
to just autofill with random
you're talking on the KYC side of things. Does current KYC standards within blockchain like meet or exceed current regulation standards for KYC, like Coinbase?
And so,
which takes you have to take a moving selfie with it as well.
KYC side of things, does current KYC standards within blockchain meet or exceed current regulation standards for KYC, like Coinbase, which you have to take a moving selfie with it as well.
Yeah, I'll say it's important to draw a line here of like what I'm talking about, which is to say, like, we were talking about fiat transactions, right? So I was dealing with that world first and foremost, and what we like, the blockchain component that we built into for us was just the final reporting system, right? So we were taking all these payments and we were processing all this metadata, pulling it from all these digital sources, doing ID verification with like LexisNexis services, Jumio, different tools there, and then just taking all of that and putting it into a blockchain. The vision with that was that the regulator would actually be a network participant on the blockchain. Ideally, it would actually be their, like, they would be the ones writing, if you will, the smart contract that would govern what metadata do you need, what sources are approved, what are the inputs that are allowed to feed into this chain or into this data repository. So we didn't get that far with adoption from the regulator, but that was the vision, and we had built out the private blockchain component just to kind of prove that out and to actually show and to be real about it. I'm very much I'm not of the fake it till you make it. That's just not who I am in tech. So I wanted to make sure that we could show it, and that's why we went with a private blockchain, because it was actually like, this was again like 2018 when I started on this journey, and we had identified a partner by like 2020 who had something that we could actually like work with. It would prove out blockchain, all that stuff. So, but I just wanted to draw the delineator between like bank KYC processes and like crypto KYC processes, because we were really talking about like just traditional banking KYC versus crypto. And I will actually say, like, the important thing to recognize, at least from what I was doing, was like, we weren't trying to rewrite any of the rules at all. So we were just saying, hey, bank, like, what's your, BSA requirement for KYC? Great. Like, you follow your own compliance protocols. You therefore have these KYC packets. We're just going to ask for that, like whatever it is. And we're just going to pull the relevant metadata relevant to what a campaign finance regulator is going to ask if they were to subpoena all the way down into investigating for something illicit.
Yeah.
So we weren't even trying to get the full package.
And I was using that more of the correlation. You're right. There's just as an acceptance form of payments, approving who someone is coming from. It doesn't matter. We can take the term crypto out and just be a form of fiat tracking or payment tracking. And
I was using that more of the correlation.
The trust in that data behind
just as an
it. And
acceptance
so,
form of payments, approving who someone is coming from. It doesn't matter.
You felt that there, and I might be imposing words in there in here, so please let me know if I'm wrong, but you felt that there was enough room for correction that this was a viable solution, and it still hasn't moved.
You felt that
in your run for campaign, and if you do make
know if I'm wrong, but you felt that there was enough
for U.S. Senate,
room for correction.
how are you going to adapt that or change or attempt to change that?
Hasn't moved in your run for campaign, and if you do make that seat for U.S. Senate, how are you going to adapt that or change or attempt to change that?
Well, this is there's two things I would approach this with. Like, the first is to talk about like what the way that campaigns work is not prescribed by, more or less, like there's not like a strong set of legislation, if you will, that says like, hey, a campaign has to actually operate like so. Now, obviously there is like the Federal Elections Commission, and there are many state regulators and even local regulators. And each of them has some flavor of how they regulate like the operations of a campaign, but it really ties into money and or like communications, all these things. What we were trying to highlight and what I'm hoping to do with this campaign, and like we're working on it, and I think you met my former CTO last night, Evan, and
great guy.
Yeah, like we're hoping to essentially resurrect for us, and we can talk about like why it failed, like why the business failed and all this stuff. Like, the technology got built, right? We still have it. It didn't like go. It didn't have to sell out and like pony it over to anybody. Like, we still have it. We just basically closed the business because it was untenable to keep moving forward. And we had a friendly set of creditors, frankly, who wanted to see us succeed. And, we ran a pretty tight operation, all things considered. So, we still have this little baby, and we want to open source it. We want to bring it out, bring it back to life, and put it to work for my campaign for sure. But it's really about like the selling point on it. It's as I learned, where like I started, by saying like, hey, there's foreign money rampant in the U.S. political system, and or there's a lot of illicit finance activities here. And democracy, is on the brink and in decline. Like, this is why I'm doing it, which was true. Like, that's the thing that motivated me coming out of the intelligence world to go and do that. That was the thing that I cared the most about. But I had to evolve basically the pitch, which was also true, which is getting to saying like, this just makes your life easier, right? Like, you talk about the volume of money that's now in politics, and this is a huge burden on a campaign as well as the regulator, right? And to say like, hey, here's a system that will just truly automate this work, right? Like, these rules are not on their face. It feels like there's a lot of them, and it's different everywhere you go. But as I proved with Evan, like, we built the New York we called it the rules engine. We built the New York state rules engine in like 48 hours because the rules are all very explicit. Like, it's very easy to pull them down, and it's all pretty much like, if A equals if A plus B equals C, then apply rule, 1, right? And it just is a very basic logic flow of building out these rules into an automated like AI system, which was what was at the heart of our system for us, was this rules engine. Once we brought all the data in, we just had to apply the rules to it. So that was like really, that's where it got really compelling when we were actually able to sell it, which was to say to folks like, all this time you had to do, like all this manual labor you had to do, we truly just automate it. Like you just automate it, right? And it's on a blockchain at the end of it. So like it's trusted or trustless, right? Like, and it's like, if you trust your bank, this is the bank statement, right? Like you trust your payment processor, this is the payment processor statement. So it's not like, your cousin Vinny who's, getting the spreadsheet. And again, spreadsheets can very easily be manipulated, right? So these types of things, we were able to talk about like why this was better. And through my campaign, like I said, we want to resurrect it. And then it's just about expanding it, like making it open. If we can get a good like open source community around the technology, that would be great, because then it can actually continue to grow. We can make it available to anybody in any jurisdiction who wants to use it for their campaign. They can go for it. And this just, it's meant to change the economics from the campaign operations point of view, to say like, I don't even need the regulator to be on the system. It helps me so much in my day-to-day. Just the campaign product that we built, it helps me so much do this better and more trustworthy and more transparently than how I'm doing it today. That it's like an easy, honestly, it's a sad part of like how it all kind of ended. But it was never a problem of people not saying like they want.
We'll get to that one time. We had a quick hand from Liz.
It was kind of disheartening when we had to close down, but it's also kind of a personal story in that too. So, but yeah,
we'll get to that one time. We had a quick hand from Liz, yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been like transfixed by like, I don't know. I've looked at your site. Nice to meet you, number one. Number two, very interested in what you're doing. Are you making blockchain part of like your, like you're telling people? Because it kind of scares
You're thinking of
people
January.
off, number one. And because there was somebody who ran for, I don't know if it's Senate or Congress in one of the Western states, one of the ones that looks like a square. And she kind of had a blockchain platform.
You're thinking of January.
Yes, that's it. I'm terrible with names, and months. Anyway, hi, I'm Elizabeth. And
good to meet you.
I actually DM'd this to a bunch of my attorney friends, like my Web3 attorney friends. I was like, guys, I think we should listen to this one, because I feel like a lot of the things that you are saying are use cases, right? Like, I mean, it's a use case for it. And it's exactly what you said. It's a spreadsheet. It's verified by like Cindy in accounting. And like when it comes out later that it could be blown up or spun out of proportion when it's, like somebody stole, Target gift cards to make that happen, or however. I don't think you can steal Target gift cards, but you know what I mean. And just used as like a, what do you call that, a talking point. It makes sense that there would be a way to verify it, but I just want to say hi. I have a lot of thoughts, and they're not, that's why I put my hand down, because they're not well put together right now, but it's nice to meet you. And also Zach is a friend, Taco. I don't know if you and Zach have met before, but he is also current, he's active duty military. Thanks for your service, by the way. And I think you guys would. I invited him also because
I heard one too. Are you going to make blockchain?
Awesome. Well, thanks for chiming in.
Is that right? Is that right, Liz?
I kind of pulled out a question that I can explicitly. And I don't mean to.
I don't know if I got it.
I heard one too. It was.
Yeah.
Are you going to make blockchain platform.
Yeah.
Is that right? Is that right, Liz?
Yeah, that was something I believe that I did say out of my mouth. Yes.
That's what I was going to go in on. But thank you for all of that, truly. And it's good to know that, it's also like, I spent a lot of time, as you can tell, in the weeds on this, and it traversed disciplines, right? Like I had to really dig in on the tech, as I explained, like to know if this was even possible. And then I had to really dig in on like campaign finance operations. Like like I said, I had been in a lot of campaigns and I knew it, but like I'd never owned, like I hadn't been a treasurer or anything, but like I generally had done all the other work.
And it's such an easy way to get tripped up, right? So like having a process there that like protects people from the minutia is, I mean, I feel like that's in the public interest. And I'm sorry to cut you off there, but like I just think it's really important to stress that. And I noticed that, I don't know if this is your first Twitter space, but this is just one last note, and I will promise I'll mute my mic. But that are you active in Web3 as part of the blockchain thing? An addendum to that was, if you aren't active in it, do you think you'll become? Because I'm an attorney. I've been like Web3 adjacent because my sister does NFT art, digital, whatever. Cool. And so I got interested in it like from the don't get hurt part and started listening to Doomsday podcasts, and then kind of fell into Twitter spaces and I have a lot of high hopes for what this tech, like as you mentioned, what this tech can do for the least among us, right? Some playing fields. Having I would love the idea that like women and people of different geographic and demographic backgrounds are helping build the framework from the ground up. It's kind of the first time in history that we, not just had a seat at the table, but helped build the table together so that we are all fitting in our own ways. And I think that's something that's really a strong, but I like advocate for it on that behalf. I don't actually like have a project and any of that stuff, but when you said tech, it kind of like, I'm very bullish on what the tech can do for that, but also kind of scared the government will have all of that information kind of back and forth. But all right, I'll stop now. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'll say it, like I'll tie it together about having a platform and if I'm still in the space. So as I said to you, Taco, last night, you had a great question about like, well, is the crypto and Bitcoin like community going to be like my base for this run? And I'm running for Senate here in New York. The truth on it is, and what I said to you, Taco, is like it'll be a subset. And that's because, like, frankly, New York is a really big state. There's a lot of people who have a lot of other more pressing, issues top of mind to them. Because I have been in the space, like kind of like through the private blockchain world, you're kind of still like Web 2.5 or like crypto adjacent, but I was continually investigating different L1s and different teams circa like 2018 all the way until we wound down operations in 2022. But that pivoted me to about being still active in the space. So I went from running Schweitzer Labs and building for us. I went over to Protocol Labs, where they do Filecoin and IPFS and libp2p and all the stuff that is very much at the heart of Web3 today. So I and that was like my deep dive into like the pure crypto experience, and that was what I was doing right up until I decided to run for office here in New York. So I definitely like consider myself like still in the space, and now I'm taking it through a different lens, right? Like as I'm running for office, as I think I led in, but maybe it was just Taco and I in the beginning here. I'm super keen on supporting the industry at large because for a number of reasons, but I think that there's a lot at stake with what's happening geopolitically and like the future of money, one kind of overarching way to phrase it. But I think that if the United States continues to have a very negative approach toward the sector and doesn't get on the path to fairness, at least, that we're going to be putting ourselves in a really tough position down the road as the future of finance moves further and further outside of the U.S. borders. So I put the crypto and blockchain kind of like I wouldn't say it's its own independent platform, but it's very much tied to what is my platform, which is thinking about innovation and the future of the country and understanding that we need to be future forward, certainly here in New York, but as a country at large. Like, to me, blockchain and crypto actually falls into the national security part of my platform. And I tie it to things like actually combating corruption, talking about how there's, I was a ranger, I was in the special operations world. There's a lot of things that we did that, well, it's two things. It's things that we do proactively, but it's also about being engaged in active theaters where you need to be able to understand, like, how does the rest of the world operate, right? So if you want to say, like, have a clandestine operation taking place in Ukraine right now, you need to understand that, crypto is a lifeblood for certain communities and maybe the whole country at this point. So it's important to understand how to have people, blending in this space, and the federal government, not just the military, but the whole apparatus here, and certainly the public as well, get into like this should be a public level of understanding, like, how this all works. Maybe not all of it, but at least why it's good, right? Like, talk about the good stuff and why this matters, and the things that we'll be able to, through the kind of mantra of America and being, the leader of the free world and all that stuff. If we're not thinking, if we're not looking at this technology through that lens, because if you've ever dove in on it, there is something to that, despite what the tragedies of the last year or so have been, and the headlines have been so skewed negatively because of bad actors in the industry, all that stuff. The true fact is, someone like me, like, I look at this technology and I'm like, this is a really awesome, to make it corny or like maybe diminish it too much, but like, if nothing else, it's a really good, secure, transparent, reliable database, and you can do a lot with that in certain use cases that is to the public benefit, right? You're not even talking about the crypto element and like financial opportunities and all that stuff that is also a big part of this. So I tie crypto and blockchain into it's a part of my broader vision, and because I have this background in the industry, not just as somebody who explored it or has been like a trader, like I actually built something, right? Like I was a builder in the space, and because of that perspective, I think it's unique that I'm not so overhyped about the whole thing. I see what's real within it. I have enough real world perspective as well, like what's going on, to poignantly say, like, okay, you're talking about national security issue X, let's break down things, and then like, hey, let's talk about innovative solutions. And did you know, like, you could have, you could try something with blockchain or with a cryptocurrency or something like that. So I hope that that's something that really sets me apart. And I was trying to elevate this. I think I said it to you last night, Taco. It was like something that I think makes me different as I'm the person, right? Like I'm the platform, being the candidate. And I think it matters that I've had these diverse sets of experiences, and crypto and blockchain is part of that, and that I can speak very, very keenly to like very sobering, examples, if you will. So I hope that will, let everyone in the industry know that, like, I'm a really strong champion of where we want this to go, and all of us who fall into the optimism or altruistic side of this, like I'm 100% here for that. So
I think, oh, sorry, Taka, it's all right. I was just going to say, I like that. I think that one of the things that, like, can come off as off-putting because like my 88-year-old cousin was talking of I think I mentioned Sam Bankman-Fried, but she called him a fat rascal, and I was like, how do you know who this guy is? Apparently he'd been talked about at the Baptist church in the sermon that week. So like I feel like the space gets a bad rap, but like again, it all comes back to the tech. If that's the focus, like what the tech can do and really
always
do
know you're
for
welcome
people.
On stage. And we got the hand,
anyway,
Zach.
I get excited.
Welcome on
so
stage.
I've really enjoyed listening to you, and it's nice to meet you. And Zach, you guys are going to be BFFs. I feel like y'all are the same person. Okay, sorry.
Not a. Liz, always know you're welcome on stage. And we got the hand, Zach. Welcome on stage, sir.
Yeah. This is interesting. Will, I went to Hobart.
Oh no!
I told
no
you.
kidding, bro.
I played lacrosse at Hobart in 2007, 2008, 2009.
When did you graduate?
I didn't. I left at the end of 2009 to join the Army.
How are we literally
No,
the same
that's
people?
what I just said.
I joined the Army, and then I went to RASP in 2013.
You were a Ranger?
No, so I was a 8-week non-select through RASP, and then went back, and then blew out my knee, and so that was the end of my chances. So,
what's your last name? Sorry.
Zayac, Zayac.
I'm just looking you up, man.
Yeah. So I'm a 131 warrant officer in the Army right now.
Wow.
And then I'm creating and building a platform for current active duty military to pair with startup founders in the New York, San Francisco area to give them a sounding board to have those hard conversations. Because I feel like active military infantry guys especially are one of the only ones that can relate to like what it's like to be a founder, and give you a different perspective. So so everything you've been saying, I'm just like, oh bro, I gotta come up and say something. So
that is too wild.
So I went to Cortland High School, so and then E-Rich knows my goal is that when I get out, after my 20 years, I'm hoping to run at the end. So that's like run for Congress, District 22. So that's kind of my thing. So when I saw you running for Senate, Ranger, Hobart, I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and we were there at the same time.
So like Jaheim Green or Jamar Green, AJ Van Heist, and I was a Phi Sig, so I was in Phi Sigma Kappa there.
Yeah.
And then everyone, all those other
there's
guys
nothing
were,
to
like,
derail. This is the worst daily show on Twitter, so there are no rails.
This is wild. Like Taco, we're gonna just derail the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to come up and say that, and we should.
There's nothing to derail. This is the worst daily show on Twitter, so there are no rails.
I'm actually just, I have to get off, but Will, I'm gonna send you like a link. We'll get on each other's schedules and we'll just chat, and because are you running out of like the Buffalo area, or are you like down in the city now?
Yeah, I'm in the city now.
Okay.
So I started in I grew up in Rochester. Obviously went to Hobart, and I've been down in New York, like in the city, for 8 years. I live in Battery Park, so like right next to the 9/11, memorial. So
that's a pretty heavy spot to live by.
Yeah. My wife and I are planning on coming down there.
Zach, send me that info.
Fort Sill, and then on PCS leave, we're gonna come to the city, and I'm gonna do like a little thing with all the startup founders that I work with, because I have about 15 of them. So
y'all literally sound alike. Like when I heard you speaking, I was like, I've got to invite Zach. This guy sounds like
we're upstate New Yorkers,
Yeah.
Wild.
Wild. So we'll get on each other's calendar, and I'll let you all have your your Degen conversation, and because I think it's really, I think it's really good for the country to have that ability to see where things are moving. Especially finances and campaign finances, especially. So, but yeah, I'm on board. Just we'll get on each other's call and see where we can help each other, and then see what that leads to.
Nice.
My whole family's in New York, and they've connections all through the city and stuff. So we'll get on a call.
Of course, there
awesome, man.
There are no derails.
Hit me
there
up.
are no. There's
so
nothing
glad
to
to
derail. Yeah.
Hey Zach, my MVP works as of this morning. Okay, sorry, I thought I could derail since it's what you said.
Frick yeah.
Of course, there are no derail. There's nothing to derail.
So Taco, this morning at 4:30,
nice.
after a year,
that is amazing.
Heck, it works.
I'm going to derail for just a second, and Will, while you, I sent you a co-host invite while you push that upgrade button because you are the man of the hour ish or 4 hours. Let's see how long we can go for. But
I'm going to for just a second. Will,
Liz, why don't you talk about what you're building real quick? Because
push that upgrade button.
For those that are listening later on,
you are the man of the hour.
I've heard this a few times, and I think what it's doing is amazing. And I'm sort of helping out with a new AI project that I wanted to reach out to you about. So
talk about what you're building real quick.
Let's slow down, Rich.
For those that are listening later on.
Yeah,
I've heard this a few times, and I think what it's doing is amazing. And I'm sort of helping out with a new AI project that I wanted to reach out to you about. So
okay, yeah.
Slow down, Rich.
I'm just gonna jump in real quick because it is 1 a.m. Here in the city. I got the 2 kids, but I'm gonna stay on and listen here. But I'm gonna probably jump afterwards just to be transparent there. So
so it's okay. It's real quick. So I have a now functional MVP of our app that connects users to an attorney live on demand during interactions with law enforcement. So we're hoping to mitigate negative outcomes, prevent civil rights violations before they happen, and prevent unnecessary entry into the criminal legal system. So basically, it's push button get lawyer, and it's $5 a month or $55 a year. A touch of a button or a voice command, our users are connected live to a network attorney via video, chat,
Will, I know you're doing a bunch of stuff, while running for Senate, which is going to, man, you have a full head of hair, and I feel like it might go a little gray over this time in a combination of both crypto, being a dad, and running for U.S. Senate.
You're doing a bunch of stuff, while running for Senate, which is going to.
Yeah,
man, you have a full head of hair, and I feel like it might go a little gray over this time.
Yes,
in a combination of both crypto, being a dad, and running for U.S. Senate.
Stock up on Just for Men just to keep it the same color until the can do a GoFundMe for you.
I've long felt that even like through building Schweitzer Labs, like my company, if it was gonna go, it would have gone. I think I'm good. There's a personal story in that. I mentioned like kind of a little bit of like why we shut stuff down, but just to give a little bit more color to me and like the things that I've experienced. We were kind of staring down the barrel of the end of like the runway that we had with Schweitzer Labs, and I was on the hunt we had raised a few like kind of like the flywheel approach of, okay, here's an angel investor who's going to get me like, $25K. Great. That's like this was like when like our first, big check was like, $10K. And then we had $25K, and Evan and I were like, okay, we can actually spend like 2 months not raising money and actually like build, like it was the POC, like the proof of concept, right? So doing that, right, and then take the POC and then go out and pitch off of that, and we raised, I don't know, maybe another 50 to 100K at that time. It's like, okay, now we can like sprint toward the MVP. We raised some money along the way there, and we got the MVP done. We were able to get out to market. We had some more capital come in, which sustained us through like actually having our first customers and like filing, all that. We were pretty lean for just a couple 100K throughout about 3 years. And then we were coming down to the end of it. We were charging into the 2022 cycle. We had done local stuff in 2021, and then we were getting into 2022, and my second son was born 3 months prematurely. So I was really really challenged with, back to like losing hair, like a stressful situation where, I was the founder. I had a team at that point. We were six strong. I had, a whole slew of investors and partners, and these like true like customer relationships, and also these regulators that we were working through. And I was the guy like at the middle. This is all like my idea to do this stuff. So I was really the glue. I knew that, but my son was born really early, and I had to make the tough decision. It wasn't really a tough decision, but it was hard knowing that I had to put my actual family ahead of the company, and thinking that like I'm just, and I mean it wouldn't have worked out anyways. Like I couldn't have raised money and also been in the neonatal intensive care unit for every waking minute that I could. Your headspace is just all over the place. So it was, and through that experience, when my son was born, and also having my first baby, which was, and I had another son. My older son was about 3 at that time, but my first baby that predated both of them was Schweitzer Labs, was the company. So I was really challenged with knowing that like the company was going to suffer, and that we weren't going to be able to put in the time to figure out the funding round. We were really going for our true seed round at that point, trying to get a couple $1 million in the bank to cruise us through the 2022 cycle with customers and all that stuff. But that was kind of what transpired, and we just didn't hit the fundraising in the time period from when we ran out of money, and knowing that I lost the time hunting VCs while I was instead taking care of my son and my wife and the family at home through that. So this is like another pretty visceral experience for me that highlights a whole bunch of other stuff that is more to my platform, but it's like through that I understand a lot of things with, if nothing else, something like Medicaid, and I now really understand the impact of like this the drumbeat for Medicaid for all, and how this is such a meaningful thing to different folks in different situations, and that like just should be like, it's just a tragedy. It's an embarrassment that the United States has just such backwards, like support systems for our citizens. It's crazy. We need to fix that. And in that part too, like having a real sentiment for what it takes to start a business today, right? And like how challenging it is, and understanding that people go through stuff that has like nothing, like businesses fail for all types of reasons. And it could be, you have a great idea and you have all the things that look good, and just something else happens, right? And that people put their entire life into it, right? Like I put everything, like every penny and every waking minute, and all my emotional energy, like into running a business and getting something off the ground that people look at you crazy when you say, hey, I want to do this thing, I want to solve this crazy hard challenging problem, like and then to have something else like completely out of your control like come in, and like we just need to find better ways to support our fellow citizens who are doing all the right things for the benefit of if nothing else, their own family, and strong families lead to a strong nation. So like we need to correct a lot of things, but I'm gonna jump off there, and I truly appreciate you getting me on the space, Taco. It was great to chat with you. I'll give you guys a little teaser, but we're I'm gonna be talking to the PubKey crew again, probably Monday, and we're just gonna try to redo the whole, not redo, but re-up. We're gonna do the whole thing again. So many people that either, like I said at the beginning, we did like guerrilla marketing in just like 48 hours before, and just pinging every single person who I knew in New York to be like, hey, if you're here, just show up. Like, let's just do this. So we had so many people be like, hey man, I'm just out of town. Like, definitely the next one, let me know. So I know it's similar, like it's a flywheel. Like we get some momentum going. We'll get more people in the room. We're going to set up a couple of different event series as well across the city, not just focused on crypto. We're going to have, like my platform is pretty robust. So we'll be bringing together community events around a whole different set of issues and different people. So I'm super excited about it. And I'm super grateful to you, Taco, for showing up, and, and to everybody who showed up, to the first one, the first night. This is what it takes to start a movement. And, people in crypto know
I totally
that
wasn't
better
expecting you to hop on. I was planning on just talking
about community, so it translates to politics.
But would love to set up something more formal in the next week.
Appreciate it.
That I can actually.
You too. Thank you for
so
sharing.
We can actually have some people that might have a lot better questions than me. And I think one of the good things, about being a politician is you're good with on the spot stuff. So it's not necessarily done.
Then I can actually.
It's not done out of malice. It's out of like, hey, this is the thing that's on the top of my mind, and this is sort of what Twitter Spaces really allows for, is that back and forth of short bites to and then deeper conversations if that's wanted, warranted, or needed or wanted.
It's not done out of malice.
And I said wanted twice for the simple fact is sometimes that's other people's want, and sometimes that's your want.
Short bites to
and really push forward. So would love to help with any events here in New York. It was really cool to meet you last night. And, I know it's sort of hilarious how you said you've been living here for this long, and yet you just found this Bitcoin bar.
So would love to help with any events here in New York. It was really cool to meet you last night, and I know it's sort of hilarious how you said you've been living here for this long, and yet you just found this Bitcoin bar. So
yeah, well, they only opened in October of last year. I was chatting with Marshall, who's the general manager at PubKey, but great guy. So I got some of the lineage of the bar's history, but yeah, I guess with two kids, the joke I have with people in the city, they're like, oh, like you live in Battery Park, you live downtown, like these are like my single friends, or married without kids. They're like, well, where do you go to eat? Like, where do you hang out? What are the good bars? And I'm like, well, let me tell you about Rockefeller Playground. Let me tell you about West Thames Playground, Kowski Playground, Pier 25 Playground. Like, this is my life is is very much oriented around my kids and all that stuff. So it's not that crazy.
Definitely. We'll do these for earlier in the day and stuff like that. I got to get it figured out for a better time frame for you to talk on some of the specific pieces. Because,
but thanks, man.
I know there's more to your platform than just blockchain.
I'll talk to you soon.
You might be
earlier in the day
pro what someone's thinking at the moment, but they might want to hear more what you're doing and building, and so.
There's more to your platform
let's freaking
than
go.
just blockchain. And so,
all right. Well, hey, you have a wonderful night.
What someone's thinking at the moment, but who knows?
Bye.
They might want to hear more what you
and with that, Liz, I felt bad because I couldn't put Will as
thank you guys
on the spot as I always do.
You too
with everyone. So it was sort of cool to have that happen. I guess I was sort of put on the spot of having him join. How have you been?
Because I couldn't put Will as on the spot as I always do with everyone. So it was sort of cool to have that happen. I guess I was sort of put on the spot of having him join.
I think today's been a really great day in general. Thanks for asking. Yeah, no, I think that's great that you joined. And I don't know, it's kind of a little bit like in a trance when he was talking. Like he just he's so well versed in that, like when somebody's really, anyway, he was in a flow, and it was really interesting to hear what he was saying about campaign finance reform. So that was awesome. Well done. I came actually,
thank you,
because I didn't know. Because I congratulate you on 323 days. You're almost there at 365. Getting closer. Countdown.
It is. I am consistently inconsistent.
On that.
I was supposed to start this show at 5 p.m. I think, and I just kept re-pushing it back an hour.
What did you call it in Web3?
I haven't.
That's ridiculous.
And it's actually 324. I might actually have to go through and actually count.
Have you missed a day? Have you missed a day in the last 3 years?
Sometimes I know no day got skipped. Some days might have gotten repeated, which is sort of hilarious, especially when you're starting a show 1 minute left till midnight, and you're like, I gotta get this, and I'm like, I don't remember what it said. It said did I read 324 or 119, or am I supposed to write 119? I don't know. I don't remember. So I gotta get this started. But
1 minute left till midnight, and you're like, I gotta get this, and I'm like, I don't remember what it said. It said did I read 324 or 119, or am I supposed to write 119? I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, but you showed up, right? Like that's the thing. I mean, even if it was, I think there were times when you may not have had a guest.
One time I
showed
talked
up
for 3.5 hours by myself.
I mean,
but I was just on this
low. Say about somebody who shows up for themselves, if that makes sense.
It's been
which
fun.
Is fantastic, right?
There was a lot.
Oh yeah, I talked for 3.5 hours by myself. But
so I'm looking at helping possibly this mentor AI program.
So wait,
for
I don't know what your
startups.
time's like, but I was just curious. You mentioned
so they're
something
building
about
out.
AI,
They're building out this. I named it Mentor AI.
So
I don't know if it has a name yet. But it's an AI program that's built to help entrepreneurs
so they're building out
with startups and asking the questions and what to do next, and so it's specifically tailored for that type of purpose. There's going to be both a freemium and a pro version, obviously, and then might be helping them with marketing
and what to do next, and so it's specifically tailored for that type of purpose. There's going to
do
be
a lot.
a freemium
do a lot of that, and that AI will help with all of it. And so there's a whole lot of different AI tools that if you
build their pitch deck,
built,
but they're forecast their financials.
It wasn't until recently that someone made an app that combined diffusion and stable, so that people could make those or not diffusion, but render. And diffusion, I think it is, they could make those videos. It wasn't until recently that so it just took someone to be like, hey, someone made a really good data scraping AI, someone made a really good explanation AI, someone made a really good spreadsheet business AI.
Render.
Why don't we just
hold
them all together?
Make those videos. And so it just took someone to be like, hey, someone made a really good data scraping AI, someone made a really good explanation AI, someone made a really good spreadsheet business AI.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can see that, because I used it to analyze my pitch deck. I used ChatGPT rather to analyze. I think it was 4 when I did it, but to analyze my pitch deck to see, I was summarize what this app is based on my slides, or whatever, and that was helpful, just to reaffirm that I had the words that right. And then I had to do some research on a comparative analysis. I had it help me do a SWOT analysis. And then I even had it do a budget in a CSV, so I could copy paste that into an Excel spreadsheet, which was nice. And do some forecasting. But I can see how I've been through accelerators and been in digesting startup.
That's why you were one of the people that I was looking at
2.5 years,
and stuff like that.
Whereas somebody who's just starting out,
one of my roles might be without part of it is there's going to be
that could be very interesting. very interesting
webinar, a free webinar series. It's more of like, as I want to say, call to action and looking for
part of it is there's
that piece. And then also going into a whole like incubator program piece to it as well, but it got completely
that piece, and then also going into a whole like incubator program piece to it as well, but
you might also want to talk to Zach. Zach works with startup founders. Like he has I think he kind of mentioned it, but his startup like connects active duty military and like kind of trains an entrepreneur how to be a CEO from like the military framework perspective, which is pretty cool.
It's cool that we were able to connect Zach and Will together. That was
for me anyway, just in general, like the past year. But he might be a good person to talk to too, just because he's working with founders every day.
Matt,
it's cool that we were able to connect Zach and
that was
Will
so
together.
Weird. When he started talking, I was like, this sounds like Zach. I'm gonna DM Zach.
No, definitely. And that was sort of one of those fun things.
And I had no idea they knew each other. Because he DM'd me, he was like, I've been trying to I know who this guy is. And I was like, get up on the stage, you goober.
Hey, not a problem. This is one of the fun things about it is it's one of the easy ways to keep
it's always good to see you. I really
conversations and friendships going as well. So
thank you for that.
It's really fun. So one of the hot topics, I guess, threads. Thoughts?
It's one of the easy ways to keep conversations and friendships going as well.
Says the attorney.
So, it's really fun.
Says the attorney.
One of the hot topics,
says the
threads. Thoughts?
Okay.
No comment. If you want me to have a comment, it's just going to be that I don't care. My only care. Hold on a second. The only is if it if I start to use it, if I'm not allowed to delete it without deleting my Instagram, that thing was weird. I'm sure
I ran
but also I like Twitter, right? I don't like Instagram and I don't like Facebook. Why would I go to a place that I already don't like when I like Twitter? Right? That's just me. But I also don't give an AF. I do some people real quick have said that because they're there early, it's an opportunity to kind of establish or meet different people that you wouldn't have the opportunity to connect with early on, have real interactions.
So no, that's sort of a good
that you
piece
wouldn't
there.
be seen in the in Twitter because there's too many people. That's a perspective that
I look at it as just yet another way to disseminate information. And if that
it was
truly joins, I guess I don't remember what they called it, the federation or something like that of other social media platforms, to where I can post in one thing and it will disseminate it into a whole bunch of others.
And if
as a content creator or someone who just
joins, I guess I don't remember what they called it, the federation or something like that.
So one of the things that Threads is talking about doing is tapping into,
disseminate it into a whole bunch of
others.
It
called it some federation network or something like that of social media project.
Start that sentence over.
So that it's what they quoted in fact was Mastodon. So that you post in one place and it will post it somewhere else
or something like that of social media.
That's not terrifying.
So it was and that's not the right term. They quoted it was a term that was sort of created.
So that, you post in one place,
and I guess it can sound creepy.
Right? Yeah. No, I got it. I just
so
like the
it was and that's not the right term. It's
not a problem. I literally,
part of the family.
I was in bed. I started this episode. I started this show at 11:30. I was in bed pretty much all day. I left to go to the grocery store
today. So
I ate
and I
food
keep
in bed.
talking over you. I'm sorry.
And I got out of bed simply to run the show. Today was a bed day.
I started this show at 11:30. I was in bed. pretty much all day.
Yeah.
I left to go
ran
to
the
grocery
world
store.
from my phone,
I
from my
ate
3
food in bed.
phones, you know. So,
And I got out
but
of
no,
bed simply to run the show.
it's sort of
Today was a fun
it's been a fun time, you
I
know.
love the
the meetup last night with Will
ran the world from my phone
was really interesting, and you know, I want to prep them a little bit on some of the topics I want to cover, because I don't like going left field on or coming out of left field on people, but I do jump around a lot sometimes. And I think I do that
was really interesting,
purely out of respect, you know. I want to, but
prep them a little
yeah,
bit.
he has some really interesting ideas around
I don't like
both like campaign use and like some of the way
jump around a lot sometimes.
I learned a lot of stuff around campaign
purely out of respect,
donations last night, you know,
but,
that
he has some
pretty
really
much
interesting
like
ideas
musicians.
around
One weird tidbit I found is that
some of the way
campaigns can
I
sell
learned a lot
merch.
of
Like
stuff
everything
around
is
donations last night.
set up as,
that
you know,
pretty much,
donation
like,
limits and everything like that.
One
But
weird tidbit I found is that
everything is under
campaign
finance laws except for selling
everything
merch.
is
They can sell merch at whatever price.
set up,
And so there's some weird things there.
donation limits and everything like that. But everything
Right.
is under campaign finance laws except for selling merch.
Okay. Yeah.
They can sell
Welcome to the
merch
stage,
at whatever
Adrian.
price. And so
No
there's some
wonder
weird
my
things there.
Obama sweatshirt cost $40 and fell apart in a couple of years. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
It did have a hole in it, but it was worth it. I love that sweatshirt.
Okay. Yeah. Welcome to the stage,
Hey.
Adrian.
Yeah, no.
Hello.
No,
Considering the fact that you were on
I
episode
randomly fell
69 as
asleep.
your first Taco
Woke up
Bites,
at 1 o'clock
you
in the
have been
morning.
here for a minute.
Check my notifications, and you're doing a live. I'm like, I guess I'm not going back to sleep.
Yeah.
Hey. Yeah, no. Considering the fact that you were on episode 69 as your first Taco Bites, you have been here for a minute.
I
Will-
haven't been here
Will
for a minute. I
Schweitzer,
know we were in Vegas.
He is running for
That was
U.S.
so fun.
Senate
Oh my
against
So,
Gyllenhaal's. What is it? No,
yeah,
it's not
hi.
Gyllenhaal.
So who
Is it
is this
Gyllenhaal?
person? If you could give me just a little recap, because that merch thing is really
No,
interesting.
no, it's the
Will
U.S.
Schweitzer,
U.S. senator from New York who's contesting. I will have to look that up because I just sounded like it was not Jake Gyllenhaal.
I don't know. Is that the actor?
No, it's the U.S. senator from New York whose seat he's contesting. I will have to look that up because I just sounded like it was not Jake.
Yes,
Gyllenhaal.
Gillibrand.
No, it's not.
Gillibrand.
It's not between two
It's
phones.
Gillibrand. Yeah.
What?
So that's who he's running
I know,
against, and
but
so he has a
I
pro
actually
crypto
that every single candidate should have
stance.
to go on the
He's
show.
been in
Wait,
crypto
Kristen
since
Gillibrand?
2017, and he's looking at
Gillibrand.
sort of
Yes, Gillibrand.
bringing
Or Chuck Schumer.
blockchain
Okay.
It's Gillibrand.
to the campaign side of
So
things
that's who he's
for
running against, and so
the
he has
not
a pro
not
crypto,
KYC purposes, but more of the
stance.
simplicity
He's
of
been in crypto
tracking
since
it and
2017,
being able to
and he's
report it,
looking
because
at
there's a
sort
lot
of
of different crazy
bringing,
things and how campaigns
blockchain
can almost
to the
sort of
campaign side of
he's
things
launder money without laundering money.
Not KYC
based on
purposes, but
donation
more
amounts.
Of the simplicity of tracking it and being able to report it, because there's a lot of different crazy things, and how campaigns can almost sort of launder money without laundering money.
Oh yeah, I would love
based on donation amounts.
I would absolutely love that. The other thing that would be great is he needs to take a stance against CBDCs and say absolutely not, only for interbank transactions. But you know what I would love CBDCs for? The government. I would love the government. Except what I really want is I want them to be NFTs, not fractional. I want to literally know this department.
Yeah, and I got into a
this.
conversation with someone
We're
last
not
night
paying
that
$600 for a toilet seat. They just make me
she's
think
not
they're
here to
stupid
defend
when they say that.
her
I'm
side,
like,
so I'm not going to go too deep into it out of 100% respect for her. But you know, she was sort of like, explain blockchain, explain Bitcoin. Why do these things need to be on blockchain? What is this future?
So I'm not going to go
in her words, dystopian future that you think where everyone needs to have choice? And I was like,
she was sort of like
question right there answers
playing
itself.
But playing Bitcoin, why do these things need to be on blockchain? What is this in her words, dystopian future that you think where everyone needs to have choice? And I was like, that question right there answers itself. But
it not only answers itself. I'm like, honey,
it is.
Let's teach you how to read.
And it's one of those things to where
let's teach you how to research. Because if you're only getting your news from the mainstream media,
it shows that there's a need for more education pieces on it. But one of the things I met, I'll be honest, I went to this event strictly to network. I thought that a political, someone running for Senate would have some really interesting people that to network with, and there was.
One of the things I was talking
so I thought that,
strictly to network.
There's a lot of different sides to campaign sides, but one of the things that I learned was,
would have some really
you can max donate $3,000 per campaign cycle, yet you can, per individual, yet you can sell a table,
campaign sides,
or you can buy a dinner plate for $1.5 million.
You can max
or
donate $3,000 per campaign cycle, yet you can, per individual, yet you can sell a table, or you can buy a dinner plate for $1.5 million.
Oh,
I remember that.
And that was the thing. I literally was invited
to
remember
when you were talking about that. And so sort of talking on how that is a piece. And so
dinner party.
I sort of see him possibly having a big fight. He's recognized by the DNC. So we'll see how that goes for him.
About that, and sort of talking on how that is the piece, and so I sort of see him possibly having a big fight. He's recognized by the DNC, so we'll see how that goes for him.
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem. Okay, so the DNC does some things. I've been on the pointy end of their spear. They don't like me. I was a Bernie delegate, and they were not happy with me. And I was at the DNC. Well, I was at the Nevada Democratic Convention and live streaming. So I was war corresponding from the convention, and then pretty much everybody swiped, all the major news cycles, including The View, swiped and frankencut my footage and then misinterpreted it. And I had to spend a week basically explaining there were no chairs thrown. Basically, this big, and I mean massive biker dude lifted up a chair, right? Because they stole the nomination, and then put it down, and it was put down, and then he was hugged as he openly sobbed. Okay, this was not a violent thing. This was like, he was upset, and he lifted up a chair, and then it was put down, and then he was hugged while he sobbed. And they basically said we were throwing chairs and we were violent. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Did you see my footage? You can literally track everybody's footage.
Yeah.
You can see there's no chairs thrown. They got a news guy to double down on it. He ended up losing his show because all of his sponsors were like, you lied. So he lost his show. But but they put out a press release saying that. They tried to shut me up. Oh my God. Then we did a protest the next day at Roberta's, at the local office, the Democratic office. And we did it was almost a sit-in, but it wasn't really a sit-in. But we were all there. The children were drawing with sidewalk chalk, and everywhere we were writing like Fire Roberta, things like that. And then the news was reporting that we vandalized everything, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys are hilarious.
You did. You cleaned it up.
Not only when
I have actually
and all
seen vandalism charges for cleanups,
leave no trace,
which is sort of hilarious.
And they were like, we vandalized their office. I'm like, we didn't vandalize.
Yeah, because they moved property that was there before them.
I have actually seen vandalism charges for cleanup.
I've seen that happen,
which is sort of hilarious.
What?
Yeah.
for cleanup.
Yeah, because they moved property that was there before them.
Oh, we did.
I've seen that happen.
We used sidewalk chalk, and the kids were singing, and everybody was. It was like a meetup in a parking lot, and we had pizza, and then when it was over, we washed off the sidewalk chalk, and it was exactly as we left it. Although there was probably less trash, so maybe that would be the vandalism. We got rid of trash.
Okay.
I don't know, but the big news media story was that we vandalized the office, and I'm like, no. So, I don't trust the political parties.
Well, we'll have to get you,
especially the DNC,
get you up when I plan a better space with Will and
I imagine they're
more during daylight hours, not degen hours, when gas is low.
We need we need something else. Is what we need.
Get you up when plan a better space with Will and
bring them hard
during daylight hours, not degen hours.
That would
gas is low.
Yeah, that would be amazing, and I would be totally down with that.
No, but since we are at that witching hour now, we're gonna bring this to a wrap.
Bring them hard.
So Adrian, you know how the end of the show goes. Or you might have forgotten, since it's been so long since you've been here. I'm not driving. That's okay.
Hour now, we're gonna bring this to a wrap.
But that just meant that I had to do
the end of the show goes.
250 more shows for you to come.
You might have forgotten, since it's been so long since you've been here.
I'm sorry.
But as we end every episode, we go around the room and we have final thoughts and words of wisdom. 10 seconds on the spot. We're going to start with Miss Liz.
Well, your shows are always fun.
I know how much you hate
that. I'm totally down with it.
Yeah. But as we end every episode, we go around the room and we have final thoughts and words of wisdom. 10 seconds on the spot. We're going to start with Miss Liz.
Always good to see you. Yeah. And I'll let you know the next time Will's coming up. And then, I'm glad you're able to.
That is my final thought.
Scrabble really a question into there.
Congrats on almost 365 days. That's amazing.
Adrian, final thoughts and words of wisdom on the spot.
Yeah. And I'll let you know the next time Will's coming up. And, glad you're able to Scrabble a question into there. Adrian, final thoughts and words of wisdom on the spot.
Final thoughts and words of wisdom. Well, I will tell you that we need to educate our congressional members on blockchain, because just watching them in those committee meetings basically grill people and ask the stupidest questions, all I could think of was, this does not make us look good on the world stage. So how about we have some intelligent people that are, qualified to ask questions, or better yet, let their staffers who actually know how to use blockchain ask the questions. So that would be good. But once they understand and unfuckwithable ledger of what actually happened, there will be a lot less need for them to ask what happened, because they can just look. And speaking of, your Threads account is attached to your Instagram account. So if you delete your Threads, you delete your Instagram, which is like, no matter what, now everybody's locked in.
So actually, I've heard that that's going to change. I just read that. Fact check it, of course, but I have read that they are going to make that not a thing anymore.
I think they did it as a thing for ease of onboarding and ease of identification, especially because they probably haven't finished building in the pay-to-play blue check piece yet. There's a salty issue for me, getting a blue check on Twitter a million years ago.
I used to help people get my friend
who's
the
marks, co-founder of iTunes,
that was a 3-month process.
He was like,
but I will.
Oh my God, because there was nobody there. There was they didn't have a department. It was anyway.
One person. I used to help people get their blue marks. So
right.
That was a 3-month process.
Oh yeah, it 4, and now
wait,
I don't have.
You mean you didn't get my 12 words? That wasn't you.
Frequently cloned,
dang.
And then people are then sucked into DMs from fake me and basically led to.
Wait, you mean you didn't get my 12 words? That wasn't you?
No. So no, I didn't get your seed phrase. So no, not only did they not do the seed phrase, they'd send them to these fake exchanges that are supposedly paying them lots of money, and they're stealing from my fans. They're scamming my fans.
Yep.
And it's really bad.
Oh man,
And
I was more upset over
the
fact that I was getting
Facebook,
rate limited.
Instagram, Twitter.
And the day after I made a separate Twitter account,
be able to kill things off
for data
on
scraping
Twitter in like a second.
Literally, I literally made an account and I called it Player One Tacos Data Scraping Account.
I was more upset
just to be for transparency.
I was getting rate limited.
Then the rate limit came on, and I was like, "Did I cause this?" But no, I think the annoying thing with Threads is I have 3 Instagram accounts. You know, one for me, one for 0x Degens, and one for TacoBytes, and I could only bring one over.
But
so
no, I think the annoying thing with Threads is I have 3 Instagram accounts. You know, one for me, one for 0x Degens, and one for TacoBytes.
Yep.
And I could only bring one over.
Yes, no, you can bring them over. All you do.
I have to log out.
You log into Instagram into each one, and then open a new Threads account. I just did it the other day. The problem is that in Instagram, I can have all of my accounts in the app and just switch between them. And in Threads, you can't.
Yeah.
So
I have to log out.
You basically log out, then you go to Instagram, switch to the other account, go back to Threads. It'll say make an account. So I just did that. So I have all of them, and I was only doing it because I wanted all my usernames. Right? Yeah. I mean, I signed up for everything. I have a clapper that I've never been to. I have everything, but I want my username because otherwise, I'm going to leave myself open to having the cam whore who I keep switching. You know, pushing down to page 40. She keeps creeping up, and she'll get it. And not that there's any likelihood of confusion. I mean, she's very publicly.
Not
a young.
But so we end this. We're gonna end this space, and I end with the same way I always end every single episode. 324 episodes and running.
Definitely.
You know, with words of wisdom and the best joke on the face of the planet. But my final words and thoughts of wisdom are: a closed mouth cannot be fed, and you cannot feed a closed mouth. Meaning, if no one knows you're looking for opportunity cannot come a knocking. And if an opportunity does come a knocking, and you're not ready for it, it's going to keep on walking. And with that, we end with the greatest joke on the face of the planet. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, everyone, for listening into this later on. Do that, like, subscribe, comment, share, all of those CTA thingies. Thank you for joining us. Knock, knock.
And with that, we end with the greatest joke on the face of the planet. Thank you, everyone, for joining.